The Los Angeles sky was a masterpiece of color, transitioning from fiery orange to soft pink and deepening purple as the day gracefully surrendered to evening. The air carried the scent of night-blooming jasmine mixed with the city's perpetual hum. Along the impeccably maintained, palm-lined streets of the affluent neighborhood, long shadows stretched like grasping fingers in the gentle twilight. It was into this picture of serene luxury that the distinct, throaty rumble of a powerful motorcycle injected a note of unexpected energy. The rider, Elon Musk, navigated the curves with practiced ease, the machine beneath him a stark contrast, sleek, functional, yet perhaps less ostentatious than the vehicles usually gracing these roads. He arrived at the imposing gates of the Sunset Condo Complex, a structure of gleaming steel and dark glass that spoke volumes of the exclusivity within. Tall, modern, yet softened by cascades of ivy clinging to its stone facade, it presented an image of fortified tranquility. Musk swung his leg over the bike, parking it discreetly near the polished wood and glass security booth. He felt a sliver of anticipation. This wasn't just another property. It was meant to be a sanctuary, a place to disconnect from the relentless demands of his public life. He pulled off his helmet, shaking his head slightly to clear it, the ambient light catching the familiar features recognized by millions globally. He offered a polite, almost tentative smile towards the security guard emerging from the booth. The guard moved with a deliberate, measured gait. His uniform was crisp, military-like in its precision, and his posture radiated an air of unwavering vigilance. He approached Musk, not with a welcoming demeanor, but with a palpable caution, his eyes performing a swift, calculating scan, taking in the motorcycle, the rider's attire, practical perhaps, but not dripping with overt designer labels, and the man himself. The initial suspicion was subtle but undeniable. Like a flicker behind his professionally neutral expression, he clearly embodied the role of gatekeeper, the first line of defense for this enclave of wealth. "Good evening." The guard's voice was level, professionally courteous, yet lacking warmth. The undertone of skepticism was distinct. "I don't recognize you, sir. Are you a resident here?" The question hung in the cooling air. Musk met his gaze directly, his own expression open and friendly. "Yes, good evening. I just moved in recently," he explained calmly. "My name is Elon Musk." He expected the name might expedite things, perhaps elicit a flash of recognition. Instead, the guard froze for a beat, his eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. The name registered, clearly, but not in the way Musk anticipated. It seemed to amplify the guard's suspicion rather than alleviate it. He shifted his weight, his stance becoming even more rigid. "Musk?" he repeated, the name sounding foreign on his lips. "Can you provide proof of residency?" "With all due respect, sir," he added, the formality feeling strained. "You don't exactly fit the usual profile of residents here." The implication was clear, hanging unspoken between them. A beat of silence stretched, punctuated only by the distant city sounds. Musk felt a flicker of surprise, not at the need for verification, but at the bluntness of the assessment and the immediate judgment. He consciously kept his expression neutral, raising an eyebrow almost imperceptibly. "The profile?" he queried mildly, before letting it go. "Of course, I understand the need for security. I have the purchase documents right here in my bag. I can show you." He gestured towards the saddlebag on his motorcycle. The guard remained stationary, making no move to indicate Musk should retrieve the documents. "I'm sorry, sir," he stated, his tone hardening slightly, becoming less polite and more official. Verification needs to come through the official system. I can't grant access based on paperwork alone, especially when there's been no notification about a Mr. Musk moving in. No one informed Central Main Gate. He stressed the lack of official notice, as if it were irrefutable proof of Musk's dubious claim. The atmosphere grew palpably tense. Musk could feel the interaction shifting from a routine check to something more confrontational. He made a conscious effort to keep his breathing even, his posture relaxed, despite the rising discomfort. He noted a couple of uniformed staff members further inside the complex grounds, pausing their work, their glances flickering towards the gate, sensing the unusual friction. A resident walking a small dog slowed their pace, observing the standoff with detached curiosity. The exclusivity of the place suddenly felt less like a sanctuary and more like a fortress, resisting an unfamiliar element. The guard's eyes flickered again towards Musk's motorcycle. It wasn't the latest gleaming supercar. It was a machine built for efficiency and perhaps a different kind of thrill, one that didn't align with the guard's perceived image of the residence. His gaze then returned to Musk, sweeping over him with an assessing look that felt dismissive. "Are you absolutely certain you have the right address?" the guard pressed, the earlier hint of irony now replaced with open skepticism. "Mistakes happen, you know." Musk resisted the urge to sigh. He knew arguing or showing frustration would be counterproductive. This required patience, logic. "I appreciate your following procedure," Musk said, his voice steady and reasonable. "But I assure you, this is the correct address. Sunset Condo Complex, Apartment 502. Perhaps the system update is delayed." He offered a plausible explanation, trying to bridge the gap. The guard didn't seem interested in plausible explanations. He crossed his arms, creating a physical barrier. "Look, sir," he said, dropping the formal address, "I'm just trying to do my job here. But you need to understand, this place, it has certain standards. People here value privacy, security. We can't just let anyone wander in based on a name and a story." He gestured vaguely towards the manicured lawns and imposing architecture beyond the gate. "It's clear you're not familiar with how things work around here. I'm simply asking you to verify my residency through the proper channels," Musk reiterated, his patience wearing thin, but his voice remaining controlled. "If the system is slow, surely there's a way to contact management or check against a hard copy list." He kept his gaze locked on the guard, projecting quiet determination. The guard seemed taken aback by Musk's persistent calm. He clearly expected agitation, perhaps anger, which would, in his mind, confirm his suspicions. Musk's refusal to be ruffled seemed to frustrate him further. He huffed, grabbing his radio with more force than necessary. "Central Main Gate," he barked into the device, his voice tight. "I have an individual here, claims the name Elon Musk, new resident, apartment 502. Is there any record of this?" Over. He listened intently, his expression unchanging, then clicked the radio off with a decisive snap. He turned back to Musk, a look of grim satisfaction spreading across his face. "Negative. No record. No Elon Musk in 502. Like I said, maybe you should recheck where you're supposed to be." "There is no mistake," Musk stated again. The words clicked now, though his composure held. He gripped the edge of his helmet, the cool metal a grounding sensation. The dismissal, the overt disbelief, was beginning to grate. It wasn't just about inconvenience, it was the principle, the snap judgment based on superficialities. The guard shook his head slowly, a smirk playing on his lips. Sure, happens all the time." He stepped closer, invading Musk's personal space slightly. "Let me be frank," he said, lowering his voice conspiratorially. though the sound carried easily in the quiet evening. Look at that bike. Look at, well, your whole setup. It just doesn't scream resident of Sunset Condo, does it? People here drive Bentleys, Teslas maybe, not that. He gestured dismissively towards the motorcycle. They wear tailored suits, not riding gear. You just don't fit the picture, man. Can't you see that? The prejudice was now laid bare, stripped of any pretense of protocol. Musk felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. It was depressingly familiar, this reduction of a person to stereotypes based on appearance or possessions. He took another slow, deliberate breath, forcing down the spike of irritation. Engaging with the guard's logic was pointless. My mode of transport or my clothing has no bearing on my residency. Musk said, his voice low but firm. I have provided my name and apartment number. I have the legal documents. He pulled the folder from his saddlebag again, holding it out. This contains the signed purchase agreement and title deed for apartment 502. Please examine it or contact someone who can. The guard eyed the folder with disdain, making no move to take it initially. Papers can be faked, he muttered, though he eventually took it with reluctance, flipping through the pages performatively, his eyes barely scanning the text. Look, it doesn't matter what this says, he insisted, handing it back abruptly. You're not in the system. The system is what counts. And the administrator? He's busy, probably dealing with actual residents. He seemed to relish the implication. You could be waiting here all night. He raised his radio once more, his thumb hovering over the transmit button. I'm supposed to maintain security, prevent disturbances. The waiting stretched. The sky had deepened to an inky blue, dotted with the first scattering of stars. The elegant lamps lining the driveway cast pools of cool, white light, highlighting the tension etched on the guard's face and the resolute stillness of Musk's posture. The sounds of the city seemed both distant and intrusive. Musk leaned slightly against his bike, observing the guard's restless pacing, the way he kept glancing towards the main road, perhaps hoping Musk would simply give up and leave. He thought about the irony, seeking refuge and privacy, only to be met with suspicion and exclusion at the very gate. Finally, the guard seemed to reach a decision, his frustration boiling over into action. He stopped pacing and faced Musk, his expression set. All right, I've had enough of this, he declared loudly, ensuring any onlookers could hear. You refuse to leave, you're causing a scene, and you have no proof you belong here, according to our records. He snatched the radio from his belt with a flourish. Central, this is Gatehouse 1, the individual I reported earlier, claiming to be Musk, is refusing to vacate the premises. He's becoming confrontational and causing a disturbance. I'm requesting immediate police assistance to remove him. Over. He clicked off, a smug, defiant glint in his eyes as he turned back to Musk. There, satisfied? Let's see you explain your documents to the police. Musk simply crossed his arms, unflustered by the escalation. Calling the police seems unnecessary, but perhaps they can help clarify the situation with the administration more effectively, he stated calmly, his voice betraying no anger, only a weary sort of logic. This reaction, or lack thereof, seemed to infuriate the guard more than any argument could have. He sputtered for a moment, then resumed his agitated pacing, muttering under his breath about people like him and wasting time. The wait for the police wasn't long. The distinctive sound of sirens grew steadily louder, slicing through the evening quiet before cutting off abruptly as a black and white cruiser pulled smoothly to a stop just outside the gates. Two uniformed officers emerged, their movements efficient and professional. Their faces were serious, assessing the scene. The imposing gates, the security guard standing stiffly at attention, the man in riding gear standing calmly beside a motorcycle, holding a helmet. The lead officer, older, with lines of experience etched around his eyes, made initial eye contact with the guard. The guard practically leaped forward, eager to present his version of events. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," he exclaimed, his voice laced with self-importance. He gestured dramatically towards Musk. This individual showed up, claiming to be a new resident, Elon Musk, apartment 502. "He's not in our system, sir, not authorized. I told him he couldn't enter without verification, showed him he wasn't on the list, but he refuses to leave. He's blocking access, causing a disturbance, presented some questionable papers. I've asked him repeatedly to move along, but he's being difficult." He delivered the report with an air of righteous authority. The officers exchanged a brief, unreadable glance before the lead officer turned his attention to Musk, his expression neutral but observant. "All right, sir," he said, his voice calm and authoritative. "Let's figure this out. Can you tell me your side of things?" Musk stepped forward slightly, meeting the officer's gaze. "Good evening, officers," he began, his tone respectful but firm. "My name is Elon Musk. I am indeed the new owner and resident of apartment 502. I understand there appears to be a clerical error or a delay in updating the security system's database. I have all the necessary legal documentation." He held up the folder again, proving ownership. "I've been attempting to get this verified through the guard or administration, but haven't been successful. I've simply been waiting here for the issue to be resolved." He explained the situation concisely, without embellishment or complaint. "He keeps saying that," the guard interjected impatiently, unable to stay silent. "Those papers could mean anything. We can't just—" "Okay, let him finish," the lead officer commanded, silencing the guard with a look. He nodded towards the folder Musk held. "May I see those documents, Mr. Musk?" Musk handed the folder over. The lead officer took it, his partner stepping closer to look as well. They began examining the papers methodically, the beam of the officer's flashlight occasionally sweeping across the pages. The guard fidgeted nearby, rolling his eyes dramatically whenever he thought the officers weren't looking. The second officer, younger and quieter, shot the guard a brief, warning glance that went unnoticed. There was a minute or two of silence, broken only by the rustling of papers and the distant city hum. Then, the lead officer looked up, a subtle shift in his professional demeanor. He exchanged another quick look with his partner, who gave a slight nod. He carefully folded the documents back into the folder and addressed Musk directly, his tone now holding a note of respect. "Mr. Musk, these documents appear to be perfectly legitimate and in order. Signed contracts, registered title, there's no question about their validity. It seems you're right. This looks like an internal administrative error on the condominium's part." He prepared to hand the folder back. At that precise moment, another figure hurried out from the main building's entrance, drawn by the commotion and the police presence. It was the condominium administrator, a man in a sharp suit, his face etched with irritation at the disturbance outside his prestigious building. He scanned the scene, the guard, the police car, the man with the motorcycle, and then his eyes landed squarely on Musk. His jaw dropped. Recognition dawned instantly, followed by a wave of visible horror and embarrassment that flushed his face crimson. "Oh my God, Mr. Musk!" the administrator gasped, rushing forward, waving his hands frantically. "Mr. Musk, I am profoundly, utterly sorry. This is an appalling mistake, a complete misunderstanding." The administrator practically skidded to a halt in front of Musk, bypassing the police and the stunned security guard. His carefully cultivated professional poise had completely evaporated, replaced by frantic apology. "The guard contacted me earlier, but I was tied up. I had no idea. We knew you were moving in, of course. The notification must have gotten delayed in the security system update. But this..." He gestured helplessly at the scene, speechless for a moment, then turned a furious glare on the security guard, who seemed to shrink under the intensity of it. "What exactly has been going on here?" he demanded, his voice trembling with suppressed anger. I was just following protocol, sir," the guard stammered, his earlier confidence completely gone, replaced by fear. "He wasn't in the system. I didn't have authorization." Protocol does not involve treating a resident, any resident, let alone Mr. Musk, like a trespasser. The administrator snapped, his voice sharp. This wasn't protocol. This was prejudice and blatant disrespect. He turned back to Musk, his expression pleading. "Mr. Musk, please accept my deepest, sincerest apologies on behalf of the entire condominium association. This treatment is inexcusable and, frankly, humiliating." Musk looked from the flustered administrator to the now trembling guard. He took a moment, letting the apologies hang in the air. "Mistakes with systems can happen. I understand that," he said finally, his voice measured and calm, but carrying an undeniable weight. However, the core issue here wasn't a database error. It was the immediate assumption, the judgment based on appearance, the refusal to listen or verify properly, even when documentation was offered. "That's the real problem." The administrator winced, nodding vigorously. Yes, you are absolutely right. Inexcusable." He seemed genuinely mortified. "I assure you, this will be dealt with immediately and thoroughly. This is not representative of our standards." He then quickly addressed the police officers, thanking them profusely for their time and assuring them the situation was now under control. The lead officer nodded curtly, handed the document folder back to Musk with a final, respectful, "Have a good evening, Mr. Musk," and they returned to their vehicle, leaving the internal condominium matter to be resolved. The administrator immediately signaled towards the gatehouse, and the heavy gates began to swing silently open. "Please, Mr. Musk, allow me." Before the administrator could finish, Musk turned to the security guard, who stood frozen, pale-faced under the lamplight. Musk held his gaze for a long moment. "I hope," he said, his voice quiet but resonant, "that you learn something from this tonight. Security is important, but respect and basic human decency matter more. Judging people based on how they look or what they ride, that's not security, it's just bias." The guard swallowed hard, unable to meet his eyes, offering only a jerky, defeated nod. Musk gave a slight nod in return, then put his helmet on, secured the strap, and swung back onto his motorcycle. The engine rumbled to life. He gave the administrator a brief, acknowledging nod, then guided the bike slowly through the now open gates, disappearing into the softly lit, exclusive enclave he was supposed to call home. The entrance felt tainted now, the earlier sense of sanctuary replaced by the lingering bitterness of the encounter. The administrator watched him go until the taillight vanished around a bend. Then he rounded on the security guard, his face grim, his voice low and icy. "My office, now. We have a great deal to discuss." Later, as Musk parked his motorcycle in the designated spot within the brightly lit, cavernous underground garage, the administrator reappeared, having clearly sprinted down from the office. He looked slightly breathless but determined. "Mr. Musk," he began again, approaching cautiously, "I know apologies are wearing thin, but I cannot overstate how seriously we are taking this. To ensure transparency and address the underlying attitude demonstrated tonight, not just the system error, would you be willing to attend a brief meeting tomorrow? With myself, the head of security, and perhaps the guard involved? Your perspective would be invaluable in ensuring this never ever happens again to anyone. Musk paused, considering the request. It would be easier to just retreat into his apartment to put the unpleasantness behind him. But the principle remained. It wasn't just about him. It was about the guard's ingrained prejudice, which could affect anyone deemed unsuitable. After a moment's thought, he met the administrator's anxious gaze. Yes, he agreed. Accountability is important. Let's resolve this properly. A wave of relief washed over the administrator's face. Thank you, Mr. Musk. Truly. I'll arrange it for first thing in the morning. He finally retreated, leaving Musk alone in the quiet echo of the garage. The incident had cast a shadow over his arrival, a stark reminder that gates and high walls couldn't always keep out the uglier aspects of human judgment.